Hey, how is everybody? Welcome to Dark Side Reviews, home of the best community on YouTube. We are talking Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 1 today, and of course this will be completely spoiled or spoiler-filled because this should have been out days ago, and you're probably thinking that. But we are going to get into it, and the first thing I want you to do is to make sure that you watch this whole video. I do have something very important to share with you at the end of this, and I want your take on it, but you have to watch the whole video because I'm not going to just talk. I got some questions for you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start it out with a question for you. What did you think about this opening episode? How did you feel about it? Because it seems to me from what I've seen, we have one of two people. We have the camp over here that thought it was awesome, and the camp over here that thought it was because they wanted to see something a little bit more epic for the opening and final season of Game of Thrones. Let me tell you what I thought. I thought, you guys, honestly, this was a really good episode. I thought it did exactly what it should have done. Guys, listen, hear me out here. We needed this. We needed to be pulled back into the narrative. We needed for folks to come together. We needed for some of the people that had not met people in episodes or seasons prior to meet. We needed all of these lines of connection to happen to get us ready to move forward for these next 5 episodes. So I felt like from that perspective, this was a very smart approach and a very smart way to open this episode. I know it wasn't very epic, but there were some scenes in here that were pretty good, but no, it wasn't super epic. And if you were looking for that, I understand how that might have disappointed you. But I felt like the more important stance to take was to pull us all back into the narrative so that we could look forward to what's coming, and I think that it did that. So there's a couple of things that I thought were awesome here. Number one, let's talk about the processional. So when Dany and Snow are coming in, and they're leading the armies of the North End, right? Not everybody's joined them yet, but they're leading the armies of the North End. I thought it was really cool how Arya is the first one we kind of get to see from shows past, and how when she looks on her brother, that feeling of delight that she gets. But then I thought it was really interesting as well when you see kind of that change on her face when she sees the Hound riding in as part of the processional as well. And you do know that the Hound is on her list. So it made me think that while we have this broader threat in front of us with the Night King, it's going to be really interesting to see how all of these other subplots play themselves out in these next 5 episodes as well. So I'm curious to see what happens with Arya and her list. I also thought it was interesting when they were in the Great Hall, and this kind of tells you something about the mentality of folks back then. So they're in the Great Hall, they're talking about like what's to come, and they've got all of the leaders from all of these different families or different houses together, and they're talking about their armies coming to aid them. And it's really interesting because we do know at this point that the North does not trust anybody outside of the North. They don't look favorably on them, and you can tell that, of course. And I was about to call her Cersei, and Dany recognizes that too. She can feel the fact that they do not like her. So it's interesting when they're having this conversation, and Jon Snow jumps up and he says, "Listen, I let the crown go for the North. I don't care about the crown. I don't care about the position. This is about the North." And their response to him is less than favorable. I am dumbfounded that these guys don't seem to get what's coming. Still holding on to the powers of, to the circles of power. You guys better get it together, because even with what you have at your disposal, you're still, in my opinion, at a disadvantage when it comes to the Night King and his army. So Jon's having this conversation. They're looking at him like, oh, whatever, man. Can't believe that you did it. And Tyrion kind of glances at him, and he jumps up, and he feels like he's going to step in. Now, I think Tyrion's a really smart guy. And we know that from seasons past, he is someone that's really shrewd and able to really kind of converse and get himself out of situations that are perilous, but also endear himself into very high graces in powerful circles. So he steps in, and he starts saying, listen, you guys are tripping. We brought the most powerful army that you've ever seen, and we got 2 dragons. What are you guys fussing about? Then he drops the bomb on him, and he says, plus, my sister is going to send the Lannister army as well. And they're all like, It appears that nobody believes that the Lannister army is coming. It appears that no one believes that Cersei's going to send the army, and Tyrion is the only one that believes that. So they're all kind of looking at him like he's crazy, and I can't really tell what's going on there. This is a question for you, because apparently nobody believes that Cersei is going to send that army. As a matter of fact, she said she's not. I'm not going to do it. Let those morons fight it out with the Night Kings themselves, and then we'll come in and we'll take the spoils. Well, she's a moron for thinking that anyway. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. If she thinks that that's going to be the resolution of everything, and then she at the end of the day is going to come in, I think she has another thing coming, because it's my really assertion that even if the Night King takes heavy casualties, he probably is going to decimate the army that they have. That's my assertion. And Ciri's not going to, her army, the Lannister army, is not going to be able to escape that or withstand that. So I think that's interesting. But it is interesting now what's going on with Tyrion, because there are a lot of theories that thinks that Tyrion really has kind of burned his bridges, or that he's lost his edge. And for him to really think that his sister is going to send somebody is naive and foolish, because no one else believes it. Now let me tell you what I think. I think he's smarter than that, you guys. We don't really know how that conversation went with he and his sister. We didn't get all that conversation. But I think he's too smart to say something like that and not know something firmly, or not strongly believe something is going to happen. Whether or not he actually believes that his sister's going to send the Lannister army, I don't know. But I cannot believe that he would just say a statement like that if he doesn't believe it and doesn't have some other knowledge of what might come to pass that might be beneficial for them at Winterfell. That's just my thoughts about that. So we'll see kind of how all of that plays out as well. I'm also fascinated to know, so what is Jon going to do now that he knows? Jon knows now that he is the rightful heir to the throne. And we should have known something was up, right? Because when we see the interaction with Jon and the dragons, you got to think like something's weird, right? Because normally the only people that had that kind of connection to the dragons were Targaryens. And I can't take credit for thinking about this myself. I was having a discussion with my friend Charles Nimitz. Shout out to Charles if he's watching this. And we were getting into that. So something's up there. And I'm telling you, Danny probably suspected that as well. Like, how is it that this guy has this type of connection with the dragons? So she might even think that there's something going on here. She might not know that he's the rightful heir, but she probably has some idea that something's going on there as well. So it's really interesting to see how he's going to take all of this. Like, is he going to say something? Is he going to let it go? Is he just going to let Dany keep moving forward in the position that she is? What's going to happen there? So I'm curious to know your thoughts about that as well. Also, let's go back to Tyrion, because this is something else that Charles brought to my attention that I hadn't thought about. The fact that, and maybe you guys have already thought about this, that Tyrion could actually be a Targaryen as well, at least partly Targaryen. And it's a really good point that Charles makes when he says that, look at how the dragons interacted with him when they were like underground in that keep or whatever they were, in a dungeon or whatever they were underground, and how they interact with him. And they basically just don't try and tear him to shreds. That's interesting, because we do know the dragons have a connection, and that connection really only is with Targaryen. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what unfolds with Tyrion as well. And if that is the case, if that actually ends up getting him out of hot water, if it is the case that he really kind of shot himself in the foot by promising that the Lannister army was coming and they don't show up, which it appears again right now that they're not coming. So there's a lot going on in this episode. There's a whole bunch going on for us to look into, for us to dig into. I'm also curious about Arya and that weapon that she's getting made, which is out of dragon's glass as well. So I'm curious why she's doing that, and we don't really get any insight to why she just asked for the weapon to be made. And I want to end now, you guys, by talking a little bit about Bran. Now, there's a lot of theories going on about Bran, and some people say that Bran is actually the Night King. I'm not sure about that. My question to you is a little bit different, because one thing I do know, one thing you guys know too, is that he does have a connection with the Night King. We know that. So what I'm wondering is, I wonder if the Night King is actually able to see through Bran's eyes. Either with Bran being known that it's happening, or maybe Bran doesn't know that it's happening. But I'm wondering if he's able to actually know what is going on in Winterfell and kind of have a heads up as to what the prep is for him coming. So I think that all those things are interesting. I'm also interested to know if, in fact, the army of the Night King will find a way to surmount or to get past the water barrier. Apparently, I was reading something where they have some aversion to salt water. Either they can't take it or they wouldn't make it across just because the exposure would kill them. I'd be interested to know that as well, because I can see like a fallback position. I can see folks locating to the island of the Iron Ships. I can't remember the name of it, but with that scoundrel, the Lovegrey or the Lovejoys, the Lovegrays, I think it is. I always want to call them Lovejoys. I don't know why, but I can see folks defaulting to that position, thinking that they're safe, and them not being. Somehow, some way, the Night King finds a way around that. So I'll be interested to see if that happens as well. All in all, I thought that this was a great episode. Man, I really did enjoy this episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Guys, I have started a Patreon page. I so appreciate you being here. If you are a part of the community, if you enjoy the content, please hop over and check out that link right there. It'll give you more information about the Patreon as we really do try and grow and expand the best community on YouTube. Guys, thank you so much. As always, I will see you in the comments, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.